Hello, everybody. Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the #1 Kill Team channel on YouTube. Unless, of course, you are aware of any other channel on YouTube. How is it going? What's up, everybody? So today I want to talk about, in case you don't know, there's a balanced data slate incoming. We had the FAQ errata 2 weeks ago, I think, where we got a nerf to Murderwing and a buff to Plague Marines. And that was it, pretty much. And soon, presumably in next month, so soon, we will be getting the actual um, balanced data slate. The difference between these is that, in theory, an FAQ errata is supposed to not affect balance, or that's not its primary purpose. It is meant to be to clear up rules and make small changes. Whereas the balanced data slate is specifically to change the balance of the game. Now, obviously, the fact that I just referenced the buff and nerf in FAQ errata means that one could term that as a bit of an emergency balanced data slate. That's not what it is. That's not what it's for. But the actual balanced data slate will be coming very soon. So the emergency changes, which I think is a fair thing to call them, have happened on the 4th. So that's basically 3 weeks ago, but 2 weeks if you're 2 weeks to the day. But that feels like 3 weeks because I don't really understand time. And so I want to talk about, in the upcoming balance patch, what changes do we need to see in the game. Now, before we get into that, we have to first start with the provisos. Kill Team is a very well-balanced game. There is a lot to think about, and there is a lot going on when it comes to win rates, stats, tournaments, all this stuff, and we aren't working with fully rounded, complete data sets. Okay? So it is fine to look at a stats page and say, well, due to these stats, we need to nerf this and buff this. Okay? That is a way to look at the world. However, that is not really enough, because this game, and I've made videos about this before where I talk about the influence of influencers and how that can change and heavily skew and warp things. And then we also have the occasional outlier where we get, oh, this team that has totally average 50% win rate, normal pick rate, normal podium rate, somehow, for no particular reason, dominates a tournament, completely undefeated. And then that doesn't really affect their win rates in stats. They happen to go and absolutely smash a tournament, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot to consider. I think that starting, your starter point being what are the stats, what do the numbers say, is a great place to start. But part of understanding Kill Team genuinely is getting to, what's the vibe? Unfortunately, a vibe check is indeed required. You have to understand also that you should never listen to influencers. That is obviously a bit of a cringe term. We can call them creators, I suppose, if we want. But yeah, we're all wrong. We're all terrible people. We should all be brought down. Anyway, with that proviso said, okay, the game is well balanced. There are only a few outliers. Don't listen to dumbass fucking influencers. Okay, right. With that said, shall we actually consider what the buffs and the nerfs that I think are needed in the game are? Now, because I've just gone out and said that, hey, all the shit you think matters doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't mean I'm right, obviously. I've got an okay track record for guessing what's coming and how that's going to affect stats, but lots of people do. I just like talking about Kill Team. There's no reason that what I say should hold any more weight than what anybody else says. I'm also a relatively casual player. Let's not forget that. I like to look and speculate at the tournaments, but ultimately, when I'm looking at tournaments, you know what I like to see? I like to see somebody that wins that I don't expect to win. I like to see a team that has never won before win. That's so interesting, and that adds so much information to the game for everybody to consider. When Wolf Scouts win again, I'll blow my fucking brains out across this room. I'll paint it red because it's so boring. It's so uninteresting. It makes Kill Team a very uninteresting game to play. But when Hand of the Archon win, or when the Celestians win, it's like, oh, okay. How did that happen? How did they play? What did they do? What did they play into? Did they just get a free ride? Was it only a one round tournament? Like lots of questions come up because that is an unexpected thing. Right. This obviously has huge personal bias, but again, all content creators have huge personal bias. They just forget to tell you that, and they get off very literally, erotically. It's quite disturbing from pretending that they know more than you. So cool. Who? I wonder who I'm talking about. Ooh, could be anybody. So anyway, what I'm saying here is this is my thoughts, and you should tell me your thoughts on my thoughts. There you go. Because I'm going to go and shockingly, I'm going to say that Wolf Scouts need a nerf. Okay. If you think actually, Andy, I think the Wolf Scouts are in a really strong space, but they're not too strong, and it's just the meta, then please say. Please say. Okay. Right. With that said, of course, before we get straight into it, I would like to give a subscriber-only benefit, and that is a giant double hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly, the wholesomeness knows no bounds. Do consider checking out all of my affiliate links. I have more than just what's on the screen, but this genuinely helps, and it costs you nothing extra to use all of these affiliates. That'd be sweet of you. And if you're, into a kill team, check out GG Easy and Crossfire. They both have great services. I use both of their products, really good stuff. And you get money off with these affiliate links. That'd be cool. Okay, back to me. Okay, right. So I've looked at the data and I've decided some of it's useful, some of it's not. I always like to, as a definition, if you're new to this, if you're just trying to get into what is Kill Team, and you're wondering why I'm saying all of this stuff, I think I've done a whole video where we talked about this, but why you shouldn't listen to influencers. um, or, sorry, not just influencers. I don't mean people making YouTube videos. I mean the internet. There is a reason. One of the best examples, which I love pulling out of my arse, is when High Tech Circle first got nerfed. They took a big nerf, minor nerf, whatever, a regular sized nerf, um, which took some tricks and removed them from the tool set, or severely neutered how viable they were to use. And certain influencers, again, not just YouTubers, there's people that are influential online, said this team is now completely dead, absolutely trash. Somebody at Games Workshop must hate Necrons. That is a direct quote. 3 months later, exact same person came back and said, oh, this team's really good, actually. And every other top tournament player said, yeah, High Tech Circle are probably the strongest team in the game. So just keep that in mind, okay? Just keep that in mind. Right, cool. So let's start with the really obvious one. Let's talk about Wolf Scouts. Wolf Scouts were released on the 22nd of November. That's actual release. So obviously they were announced, and we had the full rules from the 9th of November, I think it was. But public release, 22nd of November, in your hands on that Saturday. And that means that from in 2 days from now, they will have been fucking the game up for 5 months. And so they will have completely dominated every single tournament they've been in for 6 months. And that's after the first nerf. The nerf did nothing to the team. They're still an incredible team. So, we should probably nerf them. The question has to be, how do you nerf a team like that? Okay, because you've got so many things to consider. First things first, if you just look at the data sheets, obviously they're a strong team. They have to be a strong team because they aren't a 6 Marine team. They're a 5.5 Marine team. So just on their data sheet, yes, they do need to be stronger than an Assault Intercessor from Angels of Death, which is a tough thing to figure out, especially when they have one less hit point. So they can't just be a normal Assault Intercessor. They have to be something more. Unfortunately, they have a lot more, and that's a bit of an issue, obviously. So how can we deal with them? Let's start with first again the things that we need to consider. Angels of Death. Wolf Scouts are a very strong team, but they took nerfs. They didn't take the nerfs that most people said they needed, but we know why. And the problem with this team is that they are strong. And when a team is strong, the stats get heavily skewed around that team. They define the meta. And they define it in two ways. Firstly, strong players play strong teams. Okay? I'm a casual. I see a strong team and I say, I'm not going to play that team and I don't really want to play against that team. Okay? That's how I view the game. I wait for it to get nerfed and then I'll play it, or I'll tell my opponents, yeah, okay, I'm happy to play against that team now. Okay? Strong players see the strong, OP, broken team and say, I'm going to play that team because I can win now. And I play the game to win and I want to win. I'm not saying that at all derogatorily. That is how the game is viewed by many people. I think that's great if that's how they want to play the game. I imagine that they are really, really annoyed with Wolf Scouts after the last 6 months, but whatever. We had exactly the same with Canoptech. So, how do we go forwards? And then, sorry, not only do we have some of the best players out there playing Wolf Scouts, we also have a lot of people playing Wolf Scouts. Wolf Scouts are an easy to play Space Marine team. When Space Marines are strong, they warp the meta because you have to view every other team and their power level in relation to how do they deal with Space Marines. Specifically with Wolf Scouts, how do they deal with Space Marines that never have to remove themselves from conceal? Okay? Because that's a huge thing. Normally, the way these sorts of games will play is that you get charged and they fight you and you die, but they've gone engaged to do it, and then you can deal with that model and the trade war begins. However, they don't have to do that with Wolf Scouts. Cool. So it's a very skewing team due to the way that it plays. Nice. Even if they didn't have all of their other shenanigans, just being able to charge from conceal as a Space Marine team is really, really strong. Okay? But they do have a load of other shenanigans. So how do you deal with this team? How do you nerf it? How do you keep it viable, but not absolutely define the entire meta? So what you want to do is nerf it enough that top players move away from it. Okay? Like that's what you're trying to do. You don't want to absolutely nerf it into the ground because then casual players will be salty and stop playing, and you don't want that. You want people that want to play Wolf Scouts to enjoy playing this team. If you're just a Space Wolf fan, this should be the go-to team for you. You don't want to have these fanboys come over, play the game, and say, my team's terrible. So, you want to nerf it just enough to make sure that top players stop playing the team, which might sound odd, but that is ultimately the goal. That way, dedicated top players can say, actually, no, Wolf Scouts are my thing. I'm going to stick with them. Uh, and you want the bottom re-rollers, as we would call them in World of Warcraft, flavor of the monthers, if you will, to move away and find something else. So I think that, so let's also keep in one more proviso. We cannot lower the range of the storm. That is the easy answer, and it's the correct answer. Make the storm smaller. However, the sheet, the cardboard sheet, the token sheet that it comes with it, has a 6-inch ruler. Therefore, I think they are not going to change the size of the storm, despite the fact that the size of the storm is the issue. Cool. So, how about this? How about this? How about this? I've got no fucking clue. No, so I think I think that actually the changes they made were good changes. I think they got I think keep all of those were all good. I don't think the entire team needs lethal fives. No, sorry. Sorry, hold on. I'm just talking shit. That is true. The team doesn't need lethal fives. However, something that is very common to do is kind of look at quality of life changes when you're looking at buffs, but also look at just, let's just nerf everything here. But actually, you don't need to nerf everything. You need to see in what way is the team too strong. Okay? Remove that one thing and make sure it also doesn't neuter the flavor of the team. So, from my perspective, as someone that tries to avoid playing the OP broken teams and therefore actually doesn't have that much experience with them, I think that the team is overall just still too strong. How do you lower that? You make the storm smaller. Okay, you can't make the storm smaller. What's the next thing that you do? Easy answer. We've got to talk about the Fang Bearer. The Fang Bearer is your medic. Okay. This team doesn't need to be less killy. This team needs to be more fragile. Now, the problem with taking a 6 model team and saying they need to be more fragile is that in general, if you're thinking about things holistically, you want a team to be able to recover from bad dice rolls. And that is exactly what the Fang Bearer is there to do. It's your medic. I think D3 plus 3 lost wounds being regened is too much. That's half of one of their health. You are smashing them. That's too strong. I think, are you ready for this? Just let the team be injured. That's probably enough. It lowers them. It lowers their survivability. It lowers their effectiveness. Just let them be injured. There you go. Alternatively, again, tweaking the Fang Bearer, allow them to be stunned. If you stun the team suddenly, oh, I've removed 2 APL from your guys that bunched up there. You kind of don't have enough APL to do what you need to do now. I think these are the things that you need to deal with. I think the Fang Bearer needs to be changed in some way. And again, I'm not trying to do a massive, make them all 9 wounds. Okay, we're not trying to do that. The alternative is don't let them charge on conceal. Um, yeah, either nerf something on the Fang Bearer or just remove charge on conceal. I think either of those would work. And that would be a fine team. Still strong, still has a lot of its tricks that it can deal with, but you would either be making them more fragile or force them to actually play the fucking game. Charging from conceal, not great for them in general. And that's Wolf Scouts. Again, we don't need big changes here. Okay, we want a little thing. We want kind of one rule changed, and that should fix the team in general. So anyway, that's Wolf Scouts. That's an obvious one. We know Wolf Scouts are too strong. We then talk about, for me, Felgor. I think Felgor have not been in a good place for a long time. And I think they're still not in a good place in the sense of I think they're far too strong. I think they need to be nerfed. There you go. I don't know how. Frenzy is just an insane rule. There you go. I am still shocked every single day that Felgor are not constantly at the top of the win rates. If you look at their win rates, they're doing very average. But every time I see Felgor winning, I'm like, well, of course they won. They don't die. Fine. Whatever. They're a 10 model team with 10 wounds that don't die. They, in essence, have 20 activations in a turn. If I wanted to win a tournament, I'd probably play Felgor. If I wanted to win a tournament, and play something other than Marines because I don't really care, I'd probably go Felgor. There you go. I've heard people say that Wolf Scouts counter them quite well because they're lethal 5, so easy crits. And that is true, but clearly not enough. The fact that Wolf Scouts are there that have a good match into Felgor, who cares? Yeah. Wolf Scouts are suppressing the Felgor, but the Felgor are still absolutely smashing. They're still an amazing team. They're really, really good. I think Felgor need a nerf. There you go. We saw them do very well in a few tournaments lately, and I think that they are arguably flying under some people's radars at the moment. They are going to dominate. People have realized their strength, but they are currently being suppressed by certain teams. Once those teams go, Felgor are going to absolutely smash. Now, of course, there will always be a top team. Everybody knows this. There will always be a strongest team in the game. But if you know it's Felgor, unless this team exists, just nerf them both. Just nerf them both. It's fine. Cool. Chaos Cult. They need to be nerfed. No more need to be said. They needed to get buffed. Right? They weren't doing very well, apparently, but now they are doing very, very well. People are starting to realize that Horde teams are still actually pretty damn good in this game. And and a few of them are doing very well. So Chaos Cult need a nerf. I mean, the Chaos Cult, they are they are the last remaining 14 model team. They have ways to, in essence, get Seek. They are good into both elites and into horns uh, from good players. It's a tough team. It's also a team that doesn't have a box. I don't know. I don't like the team. There you go. I think they play a very good game into hordes, which they can also out activate, and they obviously, apparently, have a strong match into elites. I wouldn't be able to play them into elites, but others clearly can. Then next up we have Inquisition. Such an interesting team. And I almost don't want to say they need a nerf because they haven't had a buff lately. But again, if you just look at the numbers, the stats, they've suddenly swung back around. They completely dropped off the face of the earth, the kill team meta, for almost a year. They started really strong at the beginning of the edition. The only thing that could really deal with elites at the time, when elites were even more powerful than they currently are, they took a nerf to a much more reasonable, you can't take 3 AP2 weapons, which is a fair nerf, you know? And then people said, okay, well, we're not going to play them now. Apart from a few very dedicated players, and something just swung around and they've returned. My only assumption could be that it was people taking the Hex Assist and using the Hex Assist ability on the Wolf Scout Fang Bearer so that suddenly, assuming that works, and it should, unless there's a specific FAQ denying it, suddenly all of the Wolf Scouts can be injured and take both shock and stun, which sounds hilarious. I think that would be great to do. If I could play Inquisition competently, I would. Um, they clearly need a nerf. They are suddenly doing very, very strong. But then we have to look at why. Why are they suddenly doing so well when they fell off the face of the earth for so long? What's changed? I don't know. Likewise, Breachers. So Breachers, again, they took a big buff, several big buffs, and nobody jumped on them. Nobody really started playing them and saying, yeah, these guys are good. This is how I want to play them now. There was a bit of a delayed effect. They are not going to get nerfs. To be clear, Chaos Cults, Inquisition, and Breachers are not going to take nerfs. You could look at them, and we have this thing called firing for effect. That's not right. Buffing for effect. It's where the GW team thinks that these teams are fine, but nobody's playing them. So you give them the tiniest little buff, just something that will interest players. Say, oh yeah, I'll play them. I think that gives them the source. When really they already had the source, but you had to give them a little tweak to make people play them. I suspect that Breachers were probably in that camp, and they then got over buffed and are probably a very strong, competent team right now. I mean, it's a 12 model team. Is it? An 11 model team, I think. Because you've got 9 and then you can do the... I don't care. Anyway, they're probably too strong at the moment. Both them and Chaos Cult, they probably got buffed a little bit too far. There you go. They should be nerfed. I don't think those 3 teams are going to get nerfed. The only nerfs I would really hope for are Wolf Scouts and Felgor. Murderwing have already had a nerf, so they probably won't get nerfed again. Fine, whatever. Buffs. Scouts, they need a buff. Battleclade, they need a buff. There you go. This is very simple. So I actually have a bit of experience with both of these teams, bizarrely. Scouts have some sauce, but apparently they don't have enough sauce. I think Scouts could be one of these teams where they get another little buff and it just breaks the team and they suddenly smash everything. But Scouts, they're really struggling. They've had continual buffs. They've had, I think, 3 or maybe even 4 rounds of buffs. They've been buffed for an entire year and they still can't kill a Space Marine. And so, I think Scouts struggle into Marines. They don't have the AP to deal with Marines. How do you therefore buff Scouts? You have to give them. You can get P1 on your Marine on your shotguns. There you go. That's it. Problem solved. Just add uh P1, or you have an ability where your first model can do a thing if it's the first one that does that this turn. I can't remember what exactly that is. Just add that whoever does that, if it's a shotgun, gets piercing 1. There you go. Team's fixed. Nice. We then go to Battleclade. Battleclade was an interesting team. A lot of people said that they were good, but nobody was playing them or doing particularly well with them. And then they got mainly buffed, but one, it seems, accidental nerf. So just revert that nerf, and suddenly the team will be very strong. It will appear, because they've had nothing but buffs, except what we thought was going to be a buff ended up being a nerf due to, but then the whole team revolves around a single activation that it can do. That's probably bad team design. If that's the only way you win, by doing a shitty gotcha, probably a shitty game. So buff Battleclade in a way that they don't need that one thing to make them strong. I think that's fair. The one thing being, you could move them through a door. There you go. At the moment, you can only move them 2, so you can't move them through a door. Apparently, Battleclade players are very salty about this. To me, it seems a bit crap if that is the only way, like, you are winning games, you know? Anyway, then I wanted to have normally people just do buffs and nerfs. Now I wanted to do a surprisingly fine segment, which is Deathwatch and Canoptech. There you go. Kind of the end of the sentence. But Canoptech were nerfed after dominating the game and warping the entire game and meta and just having a bunch of really unfun game design shit for 6 whole months, in which all of the top players absolutely grinded the shit out of them, because that's what top players do. Again, not saying that derogatorily, it's just what they do. How they play the game. It's how they enjoy themselves. It's how people that go to tournaments expect the tournament to be. It's okay. But they're doing fine. They're not doing particularly well in the stats. However, they're not doing terribly. Their pick rate has obviously gone well down. Their win rate has also gone down a smidge. Sorry, I say a smidge. It's gone down from 60% to like 48. 48% is totally fine. I guarantee you that if top players got back on Canoptech, that would go easily back up to 54, 55% win rate. I think this is why you've got to think that win rates aren't really that important. It's more about what are the tournament grinders, the top players that appear in all of these tournament stats, what are they playing and making work? They have chosen to not do Canoptech for multiple reasons, primarily because they've all been playing nothing but Canoptech for the last 6 months. There you go. And they're bored with it. And good. And they probably had a lot of people giving them shit for playing nothing but Canoptech. And so they were more than happy to move off of it. Peer pressure, social pressure is still a big thing, even among the tournament grinders. They all knew they were playing to win when they were grinding Canoptech, which is fine. But the problem is Canoptech doesn't have the most fun gameplay. I don't want to say it's a bad team. I just think it's a very uninteractive team. And you can, due to the way their mechanics work, and this isn't bad. This is fine. You can have one team out of 37 or whatever that plays this way. That's not like bad. However, the fact that this team was the strongest team in the game and it plays this way kind of sucks. But it's a very uninteractive team in the sense that it's just going to do what it's going to do. And if you can stop it, good. But it's going to do its thing every time, because that's how it wins the game. And it doesn't have to really think too much. Obviously, it has to think somewhat, but not too much about how to do what it wants to do into different things. And that being the best team in the game is Not a good feeling for anybody. We then have the Death Watch. Again, I've mentioned the Death Watch before. The thing with the Death Watch is they probably weren't as broken as people were saying, but they took a nerf anyway. I don't think they took that big of a nerf. I think the nerf was fine. Did they need the nerf? No, but it was still a good nerf. Because I think the whole, yeah, stand on the center line, that's not engaging gameplay either. I like you have to make a decision rules. Saying, no, you can't stand on the center line to get all your buffs, I think is a good change, even if the team was underperforming. I think that's a good decision from the design team. Now, it could mean that the team isn't strong enough anymore, in which case they might need a buff, but I don't think they do. I think they're doing just fine. I think that when Deathwatch was released, certain influencers, or shall we say influential people, were somewhat over egging, we might say, engorging the sack of how strong they were for various human bias based reasons, and people love to jump on that when they get the seed planted by another, they love taking that seed and then they sprout that seed upon others as well. W- I think there's a real issue with not Kill Team, but the online community. Sorry, how we're 31 minutes in. Yeah, okay. There are only like 5 people are watching this. Hello, my 5 people. How are you? If that's you, say hi. This is me to you. I think there's a real issue with people liking to think that they are smarter than they are and that they have the inside scoop, and it feeds into their ego a lot. Well, they're it, but let's not talk about that. And when they get a hint from somebody else, and when you get that real parasocial relationship with influencers, and you feel like I'm the only one that's watched this, even though you're not, obviously. Um, even if this is a very underperforming view, at least 1,000 other people would have watched me say exactly this. And many will be able to hear what I say and completely block it out of their minds that they do this. And that's fine. I don't really care. I'm aware of this, so I just ignore people online. And they will take what these people say and what they hear online and say, and they will basically transpose it as being their own thought in their own minds. They'll be like, "That guy said this thing," and they won't think about it. And then, a week later, when they go to the local game store, people will be chatting, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, Death Watch. I think they're fine actually." And then just because you want to be social, you want to talk, you want to have something to say, you want to seem like you're knowledgeable because we're men, right? We're men, okay? And men, fucking men, And how do men interact with each other? Social media? No. You're hearing social media with a stress on the social? Incorrect. That's woman shit. Media. Men go to social media for information, for the media side of social media. That's how we interact with our incredibly autistic brains. We don't be social. We don't find a middle ground. We find the fact and we put it across as what we've decided. And that I've gone too far, haven't I? It's true. Obviously, I haven't gone too far. I'm just like we've gone way off course. But basically, people transpose ideas from influencers, and when the influencers are wrong and have their own biases and don't kind of very openly say those biases because they want to feel their own ego's sake that like, they are more knowledgeable than others, like they are above people, and other people latch onto that in the very parasocial way. It then leads to a cascading down of people being absolute fucking idiots to each other. And sorry, not idiots, just autistic and not understanding social cues. I've gone too far. I'm going to stop. Hi. Things are going well for me. Thank you for asking. Um, See you in the next video. Let me know what you think about Deathwatch. I think they're just fine. However, I now struggle to know whether I should play Deathwatch or Angels of Death. Which is stronger? Currently, the stats say AOD. But I believe that is actually just because Deathwatch took a nerf and people got scared, because that is normally how buffs and nerfs work. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.